The first road legal motorcycle I had was a Honda CB100N, and I bought it locally from a place called Treadworth Motorcycles. The place is still trading. Hello John Williams if you're watching. I bought it for £250, and my first road legal motorbike, my first slice of freedom on the road with L plates as a learner rider. The first motorcycle I did 50 miles an hour on, and the first motorcycle I did 60 miles an hour on. But no, there was no getting to 70. I think I might have had 63 on the clock as a top speed. The first motorcycle I overtook another vehicle on as well. I remember overtaking a Mini. Basically thrashed it everywhere, trying to keep up with mates with 125s, as you do. I wasn't very mechanically sympathetic. At one point, the engine started vibrating very badly, and I had Treadworth Motorcycles look at it, and they said I needed a new engine. They sourced me a second-hand engine, a used engine, and then they told me that the new engine needed a rebore. I don't know how that worked, but yeah, eventually, I gave them more money than I expected to give them. I got a new engine in the bike and kept thrashing it some more. The worst bit about this bike really was the, well, apart from the front brake, which was really bad, cable operated disc, and it was hopeless in the wet. But I did own worse later. Yeah, the front brake was bad, but the electrics were pretty bad as well. 6-volt electrics, and at one point I do remember riding home in the evening, and the bike was not performing very well. It's quite slow, and I decided to try turning the lights off. And yeah, when I turned the lights off, the bike started to speed up again. So whenever I turned the lights on, the bike slowed down. I bought a new battery shortly after that. I only had the bike for about 4 months, I think. Looking at my old diaries, I've kept a diary on and off over the years, and yeah, I sold it for 150 quid. I was a bit skint. I think I've been made redundant at that point. That was my first road legal bike, and yeah, had a lot of fun. Everywhere was far away. You know, when you got a bike can only do 60 miles an hour, everywhere was far away. Riding to Stroud, which is only about 7 miles away, 6-7 miles away, that felt like a major journey back in those days. Lots of fun. My second road legal motorbike was purchased on the 26th of July 1991. Unfortunately, I can't be this accurate with all my dates. I bought a Yamaha RD125LC. Something tells me it was B registered, which makes it 1984 or 85. I've got no pictures of this bike. That's because basically I bought it used from Gloucester Kawasaki Centre, and the motorbike actually seized the same day I bought it. I was warned to take it easy on the bike because it had just been rebored, and I did take it easy. Did that sound convincing? I did take it easy, but it seized same day, locked up in the evening. I took the bike back next day, got a refund. A few days later, I bought the alternative bike I'd been considering from Treadworth Motorcycles again, and this was a Honda NS125F. So I got a bank loan, I don't know, 600-700 quid, and I bought this Honda NS125F in the red, white and blue colours, HRC colours, for £695, I think. And for me, it was absolutely immense. An amazing looking bike, just looked the business. I think it had an aftermarket exhaust, and it got to an indicated 90 where legally possible, officer. It was fast, it was quick, for 125 in my circle of friends. It was faster than my mate's NS125R. He bought a white NS125R, new, I think, on HP. because that was new and standard, my bike was quicker. I think that put his nose out of joint for a little while until he bought himself a Gianelli exhaust. Then I think he was faster than me in the end. But this bike of mine felt sophisticated, looked great. I was really proud of that bike. During the time that I owned it, I actually bought a used NS125F for spares. I remember that having the black, red and grey paint job, maybe just red and grey. Somewhat inevitably, after countless poor attempts at wheeling the bike and general thrashing around, the clutch started slipping. I didn't have the money to get it changed at a shop, and I didn't have the talent or the tools to change the clutch at home. So me and my mate decided to exchange the engine from the parts NS125 to my NS125. That was easier than getting the clutch changed. So we swapped the engine and that was a fun afternoon. We didn't actually know if the spare engine was a runner, although we had seen it and heard it before, but not since I bought it. Luckily it was a runner. So yeah, we swapped the engine around in an afternoon and then rode down to Westgate Bridge in Gloucester, which was a local biker get together throughout the 90s and 80s, and yeah, just kind of showed off. But I don't think anyone was hugely impressed with our exploits. Anyway, unfortunately, less than a month after buying the bike, I wrote it off. I crashed it into a curb, and there were some curbs that came out from the side of the road to kind of force cars in the middle of the road. Unfortunately, at 6 a.m. one morning, I'd forgotten those curbs. I was tired, it was early. I rode straight into it at probably somewhere between 20 and 30 miles an hour. The first I knew that I had an accident is I was in the air looking down at the bike. The crash had taken chunks out of the alloy in both front and back wheels, and eventually, as the bike was checked over a bike shop, it had transpired that the frame had also been compressed, squashed as a result of the crash. So yeah, the bike was dead. I was gutted. Also had quite a few bumps and bruises, but nothing broken. So that was the story of that bike. Can't believe I only owned it for a month, but I had a lot of fun on it. I passed my part 2 bike test, and on the 4th of January 1992, I bought myself a Honda CB400N Super Dream V-Reg. In fact, as you can see, probably from the picture, that was from, I think, Roadrunner Motorcycles in Stroud. So this is my first big bike, although obviously not very big in the scheme of things. And it did have a bit of grunt, relatively speaking. I enjoyed it. I know Super Dreams have got a bad reputation, but that was more deserving of the 250, which I also owned later. The 400 had a fair turn of speed on it, and I actually enjoyed owning it and thrashing it. Yes, you see in that picture there is a toolbox on the back of the bike near the number plate. I think that was on from my NS. I don't know why it's on there. I was just young and dumb. I was only 19. Teenagers do stupid things. But yeah, I had a lot of fun on this machine as well. One day I had ridden to Bristol to see some friends with my then girlfriend on the back. And on the way back home up the M5, the bike suddenly started to make a lot of noise from the engine, and it slowed down a hell of a lot. It turned out that I had snapped a rocker arm, and I had to do something like 15 miles or so at under 30 miles an hour on the hard shoulder of the M5 at something like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. It's a long time ago now, I can't quite remember. I do remember my girlfriend almost falling asleep and falling off the back though, which was quite scary. So yes, I got a new rocker arm. Can't remember where I got it from now, but I got a new rocker arm and the bike was back on the road. I also got reversed over. I parked too close. Sorry, I'm not parked. I was driving up a road behind a transit van. They had stopped. I'd stopped behind them, and the guy had then stuck it in reverse. Fortunately, I was just too close to the back of the van at that point. And yeah, he backed over me, backed over the front of the bike while I got off very quickly. I got a partial pay out of that. It was a kind of a 50-50 thing in the end. You'll notice in one or more of the pictures that this Super Dream's got spoke wheels. That's not normal. Usually had the Comstar wheels. But after the bike got run over, I did keep it for a year or two while another couple of bikes came and went. So you'll find out where the wheels came from shortly. After another bank loan, I bought myself a Yamaha RD350 F2 E-Reg. This one, 1988 reg. I bought this second hand for about £1,500. Now this was a great machine. I was the envy of my friends with this machine. The power band, oh, the wheelies in first gear, wheelies in second. So we had a lot of fun on this machine. And yeah, it was quite quick. I suppose only had 40 odd horsepower at the wheel, but still light, quite a light machine. Sounded so nice. Even with the standard exhaust, bike sounded really nice. I have a memory of it ticking over now, actually. That's a good memory. So I thrashed it all over the place locally, had loads of fun on it, a few races as well with cars and other bikes. And one day I decided that it would look better as a street fighter because the street fighters were becoming all the rage in the magazines back at that time. So I took the fairing off, thinking it would look better. I rode it without a fairing for a while. It didn't look better, and then I lost all the bolts. So by the time I had to put the fairing back on, I think I basically put roofing bolts, shed bolts all over the bike to get it all fitted again prior to selling it. Also, prior to selling it and prior to putting the fairing back on, I crashed it. I went for a ride down to Castle Combe one day, Castle Combe racetrack, and I did one of those target fixation things. I'd gone down the road a bit too quickly, enjoying the speed of the bike and the sound of it, and a right hand bend was looming. I'd braked hard. I started to panic. I looked straight ahead at the grass verge where there was grass and bricks and rubble, and I didn't make the corner. So yeah, I went straight into the verge. So there wasn't too much damage, and I was able to ride the bike back home again with my tail between my legs. But it survived. Didn't really modify this bike apart from making it look worse by taking the fairing off. The only thing I really ever wanted and could never afford was the Micron Grand Prix exhaust system. Hopefully I'll find a picture of it and bang it up. That was a sexy looking exhaust. I'd have another RD350 if I had the money, but I've got to find one of those exhaust systems for it because it looked mint. So it wasn't a brilliant example of the breed, but it was mine, and it was quite quick, and I was very pleased with it. The bike vibrated a lot, the mirrors were useless, the brakes were not good either, especially the front. They just slowed you down eventually. Not as bad as the 100N that I had. I sold it eventually because I'd run out of money. This is how I usually did things at the time. I get a bank loan to buy a motorbike, and then realize after a few months that I can't really afford to run the motorcycle I purchased. So either it goes off the road or it gets sold. I've done that quite a lot. So I sold the RD350 because I'd run out of money. But then I managed to scrape about £400 or so together at some point later the same year. Although I had not a lot of budget, I wanted something that you could call a real motorcycle. I was getting into classic bikes, I think, at the time, and I wanted something a bit older. A 4-stroke is what I was kind of looking for. And it could have been maybe a GPZ 550 or Z550, Z650. Couldn't afford any of those, so I ended up with a CB404, Honda CB400F. My best mate advised me not to buy it after we went to look at it, and I went for a little test ride. The thing is, the test ride was all right. It went fairly well, apart from the rock hard rear shocks. The rear shocks had come off a CB750, and the back end just didn't move unless you were 2 up. So that was a downside, but the engine felt nice, and it was, as far as I could tell, an original Honda 4-into-1 exhaust, which looked beautiful, sounded amazing. And they're the kind of things that sold me on the bike. Definitely not the looks. As you can see, it was a dog. But the sound the engine made, that crisp little 4-cylinder engine, was just really nice. Unfortunately, as I soon found out after getting it home and after riding it home, when the engine was warm, the motorcycle was a total dog. It was crap. I kept it hoping somehow I would improve it, maybe check the valves, but the engine was just worn out. I never looked into it that deeply. I just ramped it because I was a bit angry at the bike for being a dog. Always sounded nice and fit when the engine was cold though. So it had one redeeming feature. Recognize the wheels? Yes, those wheels were the ones I fitted onto my 400 Super Dream because I wanted to see how they would look. I did no measuring of any sort. I took the forks off the 404, I put them into the yokes of the Super Dream. Didn't notice any serious problems, so I rode like that for a while. The back wheel didn't work out quite so well. Again, no measurements in any way, shape or form, and turned out the chain run was not straight. The rear sprocket was out of alignment with the front sprocket when you put that 404 back wheel on the Super Dream, and the chain kept jumping off. So I didn't keep that wheel on there for long. Another horrible thing I did to this bike was to take a spare pair of NS125 handlebars, clip-on bars I had, and put them on the forks of this bike. I didn't really have the clearance for this. In fact, the clip-ons put dents in both sides of the fuel tank. But because I was young and dumb, I kept the clip-ons on, even though they dented the tank. As long as the tank didn't leak, I was happy. Job done. Again, I got to the point where I'd ran out of money to run this bike, and so I sold it and bought myself a second-hand Honda Melody. No pictures of that. I thought I could deal with a moped for a few months. Turned out I couldn't, so I didn't keep it for very long.